very glad that this is the only program for which she has come to Mumbai. I think a round of applause for the FM. Thank you, ma'am. We always feel privileged to host you in our Banking and Economics Conclave. And your arrival also had got two important milestones for SBI. One is we have touched $100 billion market capitalization today. And we also launched much awaited IPO for SBI Mutual Fund. I think your arrival definitely had added to our pleasure. The SBI Banking and Economic Conclave, our annual event, enters the 12th edition this year. In its 12-year-long journey, this conclave has brought under one roof diverse viewpoints and opinions from people who truly matter. The event touches upon the contemporary themes and issues that affect the wider economic interests of India and banking sector. The sole objective of this gathering has been to discuss and debate and find solutions to pressing problems facing the country. As organizers, we are proud that the conclave continues to draw enthusiastic interest from policymakers, industry participants, and press and general public, something that keeps us motivated to keep the bar high all the time. The last year's SBI Banking and Economics Conclave was centered around the theme, making aspiration of Viksit Bharat a reality. As we reflect, our journey to Viksit Bharat still continues. However, global economy is now again at crossroads with tariff wars and trade tensions dominating the headlines. Resolution efforts show mixed picture across countries. Amidst this, India, which is also facing similar challenges, has coped well. The GDP growth for FY26 has been revised upwards to 6.6% by IMF. The rationalization of GST rates is expected to further boost the consumption and in the long run may even result in fiscal consolidation. High-frequency indicators point to a revival in urban demand and robust rural demand. Despite some negatives, such as tariff issues in India-US bilateral trade, rare earth supply from China, and brief spell of border flare-up, which culminated with the grand success of Operation Sindoor, India's outlook has only improved since the last conclave, with S&P upgrading the sovereign rating to BBB. I must congratulate Honorable FM for the effort which is done over the years to project and present India as a country which requires or which deserves better rating. We believe, ma'am, that BBB itself is not an appropriate rating for India. So India has successfully weathered multiple headwinds and emerged quite resilient. Against this backdrop, Indian banking continues its healthy run in FY26. The entire sector has performed well, with comfortable growth capital and low NPAs. Encouraged by this in FY26, we have seen renewed thrust to financial sector reforms, such as progressive implementation of ECL framework, a possible relook at financing of M&A by Indian banks, risk-based premium framework for deposit insurance, consumer protection, responsible and ethical AI in banking, to name a few. This is sure to put the banking sector on strong footing, modernize the service standards, and support the large objective of Viksit Bharat. This year, the conclave's theme is India's quest for self-reliance in a fragmented world order. You all will agree that uncertainty is the best word that describes 2025. Every month of this year was filled with surprises. All these surprises hint towards a trend where global cooperation is eroding as national interest takes the front stage. Trade, critical minerals, and technology, factors that were once seen as areas of cooperation, are today weaponized to serve national interests at the expense of global rules-based order, as well as we see in the UN, WTO, etc. This fragmentation has natural consequences for banking and finance that run on predictability, rules, and trust. Volatility is order of the day, adversely affecting investment decisions, capital flows, and financial returns. It is this quest to safeguard national interests at all costs in a rapidly changing world where cooperation is wanting. The notion of self-reliance is taking foothold in many countries. In the Indian context, self-reliance has a long history, from the success of Green Revolution in 1960s to capturing the world market in IT-enabled services and pharmaceuticals in 2000. India has achieved self-reliance in many sectors through homegrown solutions. However, with time, notion of self-reliance has widened, and today we talk of self-reliance in defense, critical minerals, AI technologies, social media platforms, payment systems, climate finance, and international settlements, etc. With this in mind, the conclave will be spread over 2 days, starting today. Both days have a great mix of thought leaders, industry veterans, and change makers deliberating upon key challenges and the best strategies towards to harness the opportunities associated. Coming to today's proceedings, there will be 4 sessions, the inaugural address by the Honorable Union Minister of Finance and Minister of Corporate Affairs, which will be followed by the CEO panel, discussing leadership in uncertain and disruptive times, roadmap for Indian Inc., followed by keynote address by Sri Tuhin Kanta Pandey, Chairman SEBI. The keynote address will be followed by a special address by Sri M. Nagaraju, Secretary, Department of Financial Services. He would be addressing through the virtual conference. I hope the audience will find these topics riveting and informative, and key takeaways will shape the contours of Brand India in times ahead. Thank you. Jai Hind.
Thank you so much, sir. Our inaugural address this afternoon comes from a leader at the very heart of India's economic and financial decision-making, driving change firsthand. Someone who has steered reforms steadfastly and strengthened fiscal architecture and guided India through these globally uncertain times with clarity and resolve, helping Brand India scale and go places. Ladies and gentlemen, a huge round of applause to welcome Srimati Nirmala Sitharaman, Honorable Union Minister of Finance and Corporate Affairs, Government of India. FM.
Good afternoon, and thank you for inviting me on this occasion of the 12th SBI Banking and Economics Conclave. It's grown in stature, and it's also an event which people are looking forward to attend and benefit from the discussions which are held here. So the broad theme of the conclave is realizing the vision of Atmanirbhar Bharat. I think I've said this before, Atmanirbhar Bharat is not an isolationist policy. It's not isolationism. But it is a resilient interdependence, capable of meeting domestic needs, and also while integrating with global value chains. So global value chains, of course, today face a kind of challenge in itself. The value chains, in the sense, are themselves going through a disruptive phase. But where we are talking about resilient interdependence, we are also sure that we keep that integrating with global value chains alive. So it envisions an India that designs, produces, and innovates for itself and for the world. So an economy which will be rooted in self-confidence, powered by enterprise, and also guided by compassion. So it is the coming together of these things, the economic strength, the technological capability, and also the social empowerment and environmental responsibility, all aligned with the larger goal of Vikasit Bharat 2047. But I see 5 broad dimensions of Atmanirbhar Bharat. So it's a expansive kind of a landscape that we imagine when we are talking about Atmanirbhar Bharat. But 5 milestones or 5 pegs can be placed so that it is laid on strong footing. Economic self-reliance is the first I would place. So you need to have Atmanirbharta in your economic affairs. Social self-reliance, Samajik Atmanirbharta. Technological self-reliance, strategic self-reliance, and finally environmental, but yet mix of energy sufficiency and so on. So environment not just in the cause of green, but also self-sufficiency in those very critical essentials for growth. So it will be on these 5 pillars that I would be placing my narrative to say what is it that we are thinking in terms of when we are talking of Atmanirbhar Bharat and also reaching Vikasit Bharat by 2047, giving a picture under each of what work has already happened. The call for 2047 Vikasit Bharat may have been just a few years old, but the work towards achieving Vikasit Bharat through an Atmanirbhar route had commenced even from 2014. So even as I lay these 5 pillars before you and talk about Atmanirbharta in those areas, I'll equally place before you what foundational work has happened in order that what we need to do for the next 20 years is going to be built on those foundational work. So when I talk of economic Atmanirbharta, it means the nation's ability to generate its own prosperity, and that too through diversified production, internal value chains and value chain creations, and sustainable wealth creation. So India is a vast and uniquely diverse nation. There is no single model before us for us to copy or to replicate. And therefore what we are going to do is essentially build on those lived in experiences and also the models which will be adaptable for India's own futuristic growth. So it should be shaped by our own realities. And when I therefore say of economic Atmanirbharta, it will definitely mean food security. It will definitely mean energy security, which will also be a part of what I'm finally talking on, environment related issues. Giving full steam and full energy for MSMEs because they contribute more than 40% of our economic, let's say the export, also the contribution to GDP through various sectors in which MSMEs are present. And also the labor intensive and traditional strength carrying textiles and unique for India, underwhelming exploitation which has happened, the area which gives immense potential for employment, and an area which should have been naturally our strength, tourism. So I will look at these broad-based progress in these areas, achieving across these sectors, and here blending traditional sectors, modern technology, and innovation-based work. So there is definitely too many variables coming into this calculation for economic Atmanirbharta, but that's the beauty of it, and that's where the Samajik Atmanirbharta, which is also one of the pillars about which I will talk have a overlap. So in all this, and since it's a gathering of SBI's invited guests, the first thing I would emphasize on is financial inclusion. The more number of people who are brought to the formal financial inclusion process, and the more number of people who are going to benefit in their economic activity through banking extensions, the economy is going to be that much more robust. So for that, we need a robust banking and financial ecosystem. That will be my second emphasis. And the third, above all, which exclusively comes to the state government's domain and the central government's domain, is fiscal prudence. So economic Atmanirbharta will be achieved only when we keep all these factors in our mind. So what efforts have gone? Since I started by saying from 2014 itself, there have been a lot of attempts to do the foundational work for the achievement of Vikasit Bharat. You might have heard these statistics before, but I'm just giving you the nuggets. It tells you where consistency in policy, stability in governance, and pursuing every particular money that is going down to the last post, welfare or infrastructure creating, you are looking at taking the money allocated in the budget to the last point. So infrastructure creation has been our major focus in order that our self-reliance really stands on proper footing. So your economic self-reliance is not going to be realizable without adequate and also proper infrastructure. So look at what has happened in the last decade. The capital expenditure allocation has increased nearly 5 times, where it was closer to 2013-14. It was actually at 2.30 lakh crores. And where is it today? 11.21 lakh crores. So that is the proverbial putting the money where the mouth is. We've actually shown it in the last 10 years. And I closely monitor how much actually gets spent much before my RE numbers are fixed. So it is with that seriousness that allocation is followed till the last post where it has to reach. So national highways therefore grew by 60%, and where it was 11.6 kilometers per day in 2014, it has reached 34 kilometers per day in laying of these national highways. So is the metro rail connectivity. 23 cities in India now have metro. Some of them complete and up and running, a few where the work is still on. So from about 250 kilometers, which was in 2014, today India has 1,000 kilometers of metro lines in operation. So if you look at then port capacity, it doubled to 2,762 MMTPAs. Overall vessel turnaround time, which is very important in terms of trade facilitation, has improved from 93 hours to 49 hours now. So we have undertaken countless path-breaking ease of doing business reforms since 2014. I don't need to remind this August gathering that 1,500 archaic laws have been removed, 45,000 compliances have also been removed. The goods and services tax reforms, new generation GST, is something about which we've spoken severally in the last couple of weeks, essentially focusing on rate reduction, you would think, but I would think rate reduction, yes, but process simplification, classification clarity are also part of this GST next generation reforms. I'm here on the invitation of SBI, so it will be only very proper to say banks have helped in economic Atmanirbharta by aiding financial inclusion and credit creation. So a big credit to our Indian banks. Today we have 56 crore Jan Dhan accounts. So financial inclusion actually getting executed through the banks in the ground. 52 Mudra loan accounts Yojana, 52 lakh I think, and 70 lakh PM Swanidhi loans, creating a large pool of young entrepreneurs at the local level, tier 3, tier 2 level, and they belong particularly to marginalized groups. So social inclusion, compassion, making sure that everybody participates are reflected in these sort of numbers that you see. These schemes have actually democratized finance and brought economic independence at the grassroots level. Much is spoken about the PLI scheme. I'll just give one pointer. PLI schemes have witnessed exports surpassing 5.31 lakh crores, which is around 61.76 billion US dollars. Would we have imagined PLI schemes, which were launched sometime in the middle of this tenure, PM Modi's third tenure, in the middle of these 15-12 years, have already yielded positive results, and 12 lakh direct and indirect employment has been generated because of that. So if this much can be said about economic Atmanirbharta, the social Atmanirbharta is the one which I would like to just give you a few pointers to say. That's my second pillar. I said it has to be laid on the foundation of 4 or 5. This is my second. Social self-reliance, like Antyodaya, actually has empowered people who actually individually on their own couldn't have made any difference in getting some more dignity and security into their life and bringing in opportunity. But we need to change from patronage-based support to irreversible empowerment and independence. I think this line is one fundamental reason why we were able to lift out of multi-dimensional poverty such a large number of people. And that couldn't have been realized without the approach of empower people and not really patronize them. So that has actually brought the difference. I would actually say our goal must be a society and people that stand on their own feet, confident, caring, and united. Self-belief and collective strength must replace dependence and helplessness. So what are our efforts towards achieving social self-reliance? The compare and contrast or understand where the foundational work has already happened. In the last 11 years, Prime Minister Modi led NDA government has launched efficiently several welfare schemes, and some of which I would like to not just highlight but also talk about the collateral that it has given. 4 crore people have got PM Awas Yojana, data something which all of you all know about. 15 crore plus people have got tap water connections. 12 crore toilets have been built. 10 crore LPG gas cylinders have been given for those who get the subsidy as well. 81 crore people have got free ration. But if this is one set of data, more important and that which appeals to me a lot is the digital public infrastructure enabled direct benefit transfers. And direct benefit transfers may mean immensely a lot for the person who receives money or the welfare, whatever allowance, directly into his account. It's a brilliant idea for the person because he doesn't lose out on being taken away for middlemen. But as a country, what have we got out of it? A total of 47 lakh crores have been passed on to people through DBT since 2014. Little by little, more schemes got added. So till today, cumulatively, all of them put together, 47 lakh crores have been passed on through DBT. And how much have we saved as a country by using DBT method of passing money to the people who need to get it? 4.31 lakh crores have been saved for the government. So using technology to benefit and simultaneously having the financial inclusion program happening, so individual get their bank account verified, KYC tested, and through the Aadhaar platform, when you're sending the money, you actually send it fully and without any pilferages to the person who needs to get it. But more importantly, government has also saved the money. After all, that money can again go back through various other ways to the people. So when I said because of these methods, you were able to get many people out of multidimensional poverty, 25 crore is the number of people who have come out of poverty, multidimensional poverty, and that is a very big number, which is normally spoken when you go for your World Bank meet or IMF. Countries do approach you and say, remarkable achievement, how did you do it? And they do talk about it to see if there is anything that they can learn from our experience. And I would think the way in which India demarcated 112 districts as aspirational districts, and in them focused every scheme of the government to be reaching the public and monitoring it through different platforms, and PM himself once in a month monitoring the progress through his Pragati program, where he interacts with the district collectors directly. You were able to achieve these goals. So I think it is important. So are we just giving all these free ration and getting houses built and only that much? Are we not doing much in education? Yes, we are doing a lot more on education as well. Universities grew from 760 in 2014-15 to 1,340 in 2025. So if you're looking at Vikasit Bharat, without building these institutions, you're not going to be having that kind of an access to good education. Similarly, colleges. In 2014-15, you had 38,500 colleges, 38,500. In 2025, there are 52,000 colleges established. So education is receiving its due attention, which has to be given. So does it stop at that? 7 new IITs have been built in this last 10 years. 6,500 more seats have also been added up. 8 new Indian Institute of Managements have been built. And today you have a total of 21 of them. And 16 new aims have been set up all over the country. So the institutions, building them up, bringing the faculty, adding new seats, giving access to higher education are all part of a good educational framework. Similarly, the healthcare system is something on which I like to place emphasis. 55 crore individuals have been included under PM Jan Arogya Yojana, Ayushman Bharat that we popularly refer to, which means 12 crore or a bit more families have benefited because of this Jan Arogya Yojana. 17,000 Jan Ayush Aushadhi Kendras have been set up, which give affordable medicines because generic medicines are being given. They are bringing down cost by 60% in total for every family. So now I move on to technological self-reliance. Design, develop and deploy technology without external vulnerability. That's the Atmanirbharta that we are looking for in technology, from ideas also till execution. So indigenous R&D, ability to convert knowledge into national capabilities, and intellectual sovereignty are very important even as we work in these fields. And I would think technological Atmanirbharta is not only about hardware or manufacturing, but it's also about data sovereignty, digital trust, leadership in emerging frontiers such as AI, quantum tech, space and biotechnology. So it is this direction that we want to take, and what is our effort there? Our government has used technology for inclusive development, as I gave you examples earlier, ease of living, and also for technology-led growth. there are today 116 crore mobile subscribers in India. 116 crore. Cost of data, which is very important for democratizing connections. Cost of data has come down to 10 rupees per GB from 300 rupees per GB, which was in 2014. So this has reduced the digital divide. I remember a couple of years ago, everyone, particularly during COVID, we were periodically reminded, and rightly so, saying it's all right, you're providing DD to give you education, or you're sending digital kits. Will it reach our rural areas? Will it reach the poorer sections? So nearly 200 special programs were created under Doordarshan. So they can go to the classroom level, teach them. Doordarshan can be seen at home. So classes happen through even Doordarshan. So digital divide, if this is the number that we are talking about, and if this is the cost of data per GB, which is called the cheapest in the world, and as a result, the divide is getting bridged and bridged literally to the last household. We have opened up frontier sectors for private participation, for participation by startups. Drone and space are two classical examples, and India's DPI is unparalleled, of course, I don't need to elaborate. The PLI scheme for the large-scale electronics manufacturing has actually made out India to be completely transformed into a net exporter of mobile phones from being a net importer. The AI Action Summit, which was held in February 2025, India and France co-chaired the session to promote ethical use of AI, which is equally important. As much as AI's development, equally parallelly we should take care of ethical use of AI and the development of AI systems that are human-centric, safe, and trustworthy. So earlier in the week, I'm sure most of you will know, Honorable PM launched 1 lakh crore research development fund for innovation R&D schemes, so that the private sector can also benefit from it. The last but one up is the strategic self-reliance. We have very clearly stood out in making sure that the autonomy of decision making in matters which are important for national interest and for sovereignty are kept intact. I think this will get strengthened more with food security, energy, minerals, and defense needs also becoming self-sufficient. So our diplomacy also extends where we can maintain that freedom, and in order that that area works well, I think we have played a very significant role in international affairs. India also is emerging as a Vishwamitra that builds bridges with countries. So one area in which I think I notice a big difference is indigenous defense production and exports, which have improved substantially. Defense production is now at 1.51 lakh crores. Defense exports have jumped 34 times since 2014 and now records 23,600 crores in terms of earnings from exports. So there is so much more to speak on the first responder role that India plays, whether in the island nations or in our immediate neighborhood. And the last thing that I would like to emphasize on is the energy security. It's a very important area. We need to have a harmony between growth and nature. Independence from fragile global energy and resource systems is something which any country would want, and India should certainly have it given our growth aspirations. So what have we done on that? diversifying clean energy and its sources to reduce carbon emissions. Quite a lot of effort is going on. The International Solar Alliance is something which has been received very well by our friendly nations. Many of them have joined. And it's important to notice here that the nationally determined contribution target of 40% of installed capacity from non-fossil fuel sources in November 21 itself was achieved, 40% target, a full 9 years ahead of 2030 target, and this was completely self-funded. Similarly, non-fossil fuel sources, renewable energy, hydro, nuclear, at about 256 gigawatt, over 51% of the total installed power capacity has also been achieved. India is recognized as the 4th globally biggest in overall renewable energy capacity. Mission Life is something which we are actively promoting so that individuals also contribute towards global awareness. India's green cover has actually grown, and today there is a net increase of 16,630 square kilometers in forest cover. I'll conclude by saying these are very important for us to recognize, and this road to Atmanirbhar Bharat is one of courage, cooperation, and constant adaptation. India must act together. Where they said slow and steady would win it, I would say mindfulness and steadiness would improve, because we have to constantly be mindful of the route that we are taking, the method that we are adopting, and the way in which we are implementing and progress in that direction. But of course, we have global headwinds. Global institutions are fading, so there is no one or a few institutions which can govern or regulate or guide globally on the right way to go forward. Capital movements are becoming speculative. The chairman in his address spoke about weaponizing global commons or weaponizing global instruments which are important for growth. Volatility and uncertainty are everyday language. So with these, you know what kind of headwinds we will be facing, whether it is in terms of currency, exchange rate, or inflation, globally driven inflation, and so on. The other challenges which I will just flag but not get into details are skills and productivity gap, particularly with upskilling requirements which are coming in because of AI, innovation in ecosystem, deep collaboration is required between academia, industry, and government at every level, the central government level, state government level, and also the local body level, and it is required for both manufacturing and also for services. Access to finance is absolutely critical. Banks have to continue to play that role and make sure that we deepen and widen credit flow. A system-driven, transparent lending process is essential. We have to learn from the ghosts of the past and not be constrained by them or not be fearful of such steps which were taken earlier. But I think today, once we have professionalized our banks, decision making also will be professionalized. Fiscal prudence, it's my responsibility to talk about it. We are maintaining a sustained self-reliance principle in making sure that our fiscal discipline is never threatened. Balancing growth spending with fiscal stability will ensure macroeconomic resilience, keep inflation in check, and also preserve investors' confidence. Leadership and vision is a very important factor. India is the only country which I can see offering a stability even in this kind of a very turmoil-ridden world, and I think that is one of the advantage for India. And finally, mindset to continuously carrying out reforms will be important, whether it pertains to central government reforms, state government reforms, or regulators reforming themselves, or judiciary. So in all these areas, we need to have greater attention given to meet the challenges so that we can, for sure, reach Vikasit Bharat. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam. Ma'am, can I please request you to be seated on the stage for a quick Q&A session. I would also want to invite Chairman SBI C.S. Setty to please join Madam Minister on the stage for a quick Q&A session.
Thank you, ma'am, for very, very comprehensive context setting for this conclave. What I liked in your presentation is in terms of laying out what actually self-reliance means for India. And truly Atmanirbhar Bharat has to not only look at economic resilience, but also economic, social, technological, strategic, and environmental. I think enough food for thought for the conclave. We will be running these themes across our panels, across our keynote speakers, and probably will build the consensus on many of the thoughts what you have generated today. I also like, ma'am, the courage, cooperation, and constant adaptation. I think these are the critical elements in our journey towards self-reliance. Thank you very much for those ideas what you have given. Ma'am, I have a few questions of my own before we open up to the audience. The first question is the overarching theme of our conclave. You have set the context, of course. While it is true that world is in a fragmented order, IMF in its latest update indicate that prolonged uncertainty, more protectionism, and labor supply shocks could reduce economic growth. Even though, ma'am, our SBI research team forcefully says India will possibly close the year with a growth rate close to 7%. How do you see India's quest for self-reliance? Of course, you have laid out very clearly, but from this backdrop of economic growth rate, while we philosophically have laid out our 5 pillars, on the ground, we see that there's a good amount of consumption demand coming back. In our Q2 numbers, we surprised the market in terms of our growth rates. I think aided predominantly by the fiscal measures what you have taken and banking related measures the regulators have taken. My question is that how do you see in this backdrop the growth rate momentum?
I don't want to sound too ambitious or also giving a statement of overconfidence. But I can very clearly see that India has shown its capability, markets, and also the way in which, in spite of the global uncertainties, people of India have responded to a next generation GST reform. Every sector saw it even on the first day, September 22nd. Some saw it even earlier because they opened up earlier. Now, why do I just start my answer or reply to this particular question from the GST point of view? I think GST shows in terms of small, medium, and large purchases, big ticket purchases or small ticket everyday item purchases, the readiness of the people to respond to public policy. Indians have always responded to governments which are responsive. And I must thank the GST Council for having seen this point in unanimously coming out with the next generation reform. And that is showcasing how the economy is bringing out the best in it. If comes earlier, I'll jump one point and come back to talking about this. The argument which majority of the people would put forth in asking a question to me or to anybody in the government would be, all right, you're spending so much in capital expenditure, you're trying to rev up the economy, but is the private sector showing that much of interest in coming in and expanding their capacity, spending, investing, widening their capabilities and so on? The answer used to be, not from me, but from the industry itself, used to be the consumption horizon is still not clear. But from September 22nd, you're seeing the consumption horizon glaring as we watch it, as we observe it. So there is demand there. It was waiting to come out like an arc before you. It has come out. And I'm also seeing good many number of private sector capacity building and also equally credit also going out of banks. So it has actually kickstart the biggest, I would think, virtuous cycle for India. And if virtuous cycle actually speeds up at this pace, growth numbers can be what you want.
I know I think you probably restrained saying from any numbers, but we are seeing on the ground, ma'am. In fact, in my presentation, post results also I mentioned, while we would like to see more and more private capital expenditure to come back in a big way, one important reason people have been quoting in terms of sustained consumption demand, we are witnessing now. Even in the October numbers, we see that good consumption demand and also consumption credit, both in terms of home loans, auto loans. I think it's picking up, and we hope that the private capital expenditure will be sooner, will be taken up. But before I move to my next question, ma'am, I would like to just open up to the audience. A couple of questions we take from the audience, and then we'll come back to my questions. Yeah. Any questions? Yes.
Namaskar, madam. This is Chandrakant Salunke, President SME Chamber of India and Manufacturers and Exporters Association of India. I would like to bring a notice that particularly firms are registered in two ways. One is an ROC, and in a second is firms are registered in state government. If you look at the 7 crore MSMEs in India, and mostly the partnership firms also there and proprietorship. But because of the registration under the state government law and judiciary, they don't have interest to to give the registration instantly. If we have to look at the competition with China, 180 million enterprises registered there, and we have 29 lakh companies registered on the ROC, and 18 lakhs now running, 10 lakhs are struggling. So I would like to bring, I want to suggest you how we had given the recognition to the startups. Can we bring out this register of firms to the ROC, where Indian SMEs, Indian enterprises can create more credibility, particularly to follow the fair business practices, and mostly the banks are facing problem to reach the 1 crore, the customer base for the MSME sector, where banking also can lend properly for to march towards Viksit Bharat. So I request you humbly take this note and discuss with the state government or bring out that this register of firms to the ROC. It will be definitely, we will increase the numbers and also will be enhance the manufacturing unit activities in India. Thank you.
Would you like to respond, ma'am? Okay. Any other questions? Yeah.
Good evening, ma'am. Since we are here at the SBI Banking Conclave, I'll ask my question in the context of banking. I know that you've previously said that India needs not just world-class banks, it also needs world-sized banks. So, ma'am, is the government actively looking at further consolidation in the Indian banking sector? And is the government also actively looking at enhancing the FDI limit as far as public sector banks are concerned to 49%? Thank you very much.
No, I repeat that line. India needs a lot of big banks, world-class banks. And for that, of course, we will have to sit and talk with the Reserve Bank and also with the banks themselves to see how they want to take it forward. And also discuss with RBI about how they have a idea of taking or idea of building larger banks. So there's a lot of work to do prior to my saying, yes, I've taken a call or government is looking at this way or that way. And in that, work has already commenced. We are discussing with RBI, we are discussing with banks. It's not by creating from among those which exist today just by amalgamation. That can also be one of the route. But you need an ecosystem and also an environment in which more banks can operate and operate to grow. So that environment is actually well established in India, but I need it to be a bit more dynamic. So some work is happening on it.
Thank you, ma'am. So one of the pillars which you mentioned about technological resilience, taking cue from that, my question is, in a recent event, while releasing the report on AI for Viksit Bharat, the opportunity for accelerated economic growth, you have emphasized the need for regulations that foster technology innovation in a responsible manner, particularly in artificial intelligence, rather than stifling it. We would like to hear from you, ma'am, that what type of regulations you are referring, as there are divergent views about the role of AI on growth, innovation, employment.
I'm actually discussing a lot on AI and regulation of AI, both with the ministries and with Niti Aayog, just to make sure at a time when AI is opening up opportunities, we don't enter into a terrain with so much of gusto that we regulate it and result in stifling that. At the same time, the risks of AI unethically growing and into areas which can threaten individual, the data, or even some practices which are very easy to be misused by misguided elements. It also has a very big connotation if it is left unregulated, totally I mean. If it is left totally unregulated, the implication on national security, the implication on forces which can bring in illegal activity, whether it is drugs and other things, is very high. So as much as we want for increasing productivity, for efficiency, for scaling up the tools from AI, we should be mindful that it is also highly prone to be misused. We need to have soft touch so that we don't stifle the technology, but equally be nimble to be able to plug all the loopholes which can bring in national risk into the picture.
Yeah, without encouraging the innovation, without ignoring the risks associated with this powerful technological tool which is getting developed. Would like to take a few questions from the audience before I move to my next question.
Thank you. I just wanted to thank you very much. In fact, just yesterday, you have issued, or MITI has issued the AI guidelines, which are a fantastic framework which balance both the need for innovation and the need for some kind of regulation. And my only comment, and I think Secretary Krishnan even mentioned, that we will not hesitate if there is a need. These are non-binding, but we will not hesitate to make legally binding ones if we need to. I just wanted one comment, is that in the US, to be very frank, I think there's been some capture by the huge corporates. So the idea of leaving it completely unregulated does not make sense. EU may have gone overboard in regulations. We have struck a very good balance. Thank you.
Thanks for the feedback, Mr. Vakil.
Sir, can I ask?
Yes.
Namaste. मैम, जिस तरह से आज आपने पूरे अपनी स्पीच में कंजम्पशन की बात की है और फोकस भी रहा है जीएसटी रिफॉर्म्स के जरिए कंजम्पशन को बढ़ावा देना, लेकिन एक मुद्दा, क्योंकि आप ज़मीन से चीज़ों को समझती है लोगों से मिलकर करके, लेकिन जो एक 2 से 3 लाख करोड़ रुपए तक का इकोनॉमी में नुकसान हो रहा है एफएनओ निवेश से जरिए, उसमें कई सारे छोटे निवेशक भी अपना पैसा गंवा रहे हैं, कई सारे ऐसे मामले आए जिसमें घर के घर बर्बाद हो गए हैं। तो क्या ये चीज़ आपके संज्ञान में है, क्योंकि ये पैसा कंजम्पशन में आ सकता है, इकोनॉमी को बूस्ट दे सकता है, और सेबी की रिपोर्ट भी बता रही है कि 93% लोग हैं अपना पैसा गंवा रहे हैं। सेबी ने एक मामले में जांच भी करी कि एक विदेशी फर्म जो है वो हजारों करोड़ रुपए का मैनिपुलेशन के जरिए कमाई कर गई। तो क्या आपके संज्ञान में ये सब कुछ है, और ये बड़ा पैसा कंजम्पशन में आके जो सरकार का मकसद है, जो आपका मकसद है, उसको और आगे बढ़ाया जा सकता है?
संज्ञान में है, मगर उस पैसा को कुछ और रास्ता में लेके जाना मेरा इरादा नहीं है। जिस रास्ता में वो जाना चाहते हैं वो उनका मर्जी। सरकार रास्ता बदलने के लिए नहीं, मगर उस रास्ते में जिस तरह के नुकसान हो सकता है जो आप विस्तार से बात कर रहे हैं उसके ऊपर, उसको अवेयरनेस के द्वारा बातें करेंगे या प्रोग्राम करेंगे, गांव-गांव तक जाकर बोलेंगे भैया संभालो, आपको इतना नुकसान होगा, वो सब कर सकते हैं। मगर वो रास्ता किस रूट में जाना है वो बोलने का मेरा अधिकार नहीं बनता, ऐसे मैं समझती हूँ, क्योंकि पैसा उनका है, संभालना भी उनका ही होता है। हम संज्ञान में लेते हैं और उसके लिए कुछ अवेयरनेस के तरह काम कर सकते हैं। उससे ज़्यादा अभी कुछ मेरे पास आइडिया नहीं है। अगर आपके पास है तो प्लीज़ भेजिए, मैं एक्ट करने के लिए तैयार हूँ।
Good afternoon, ma'am. Very nice to hear the kind of words you have said about self-independence and Atmanirbhar Bharat. The way in which the electronics industry has responded to various initiatives. Well, why don't you feel that the times to come, the artificial intelligence, but more importantly, biotechnology, biomedical, and bioengineering are going to be the future frontiers of the industry? Can we not work out something for these sectors also in a very focused, designated, and an objective manner so that industry gets encouraged and gets active in these areas?
Let me assure you, they are not ignored. They are not bypassed. This 1 lakh crore which Honorable Prime Minister announced includes those areas. And also, it is not confined only to the government-related R&D. Private sector is also welcome to participate and benefit from that fund. So we are aware of the potential that lies there and we want to support them.
Good evening, ma'am. We are happy for the Government of India's policy on GST reforms, and the industry is very happy about that. Since COVID loans have been, most of the COVID loans have been paid by the industry, we feel like future capex, I think some support from the government by way of interest subvention is helpful, because the economy, most of the industries, people are still waiting when to spend for future expansion and all, ma'am. Maybe some support on the interest subvention is required for the industry. That's what most of the industries feel, ma'am. Thank you.
Okay. Ma'am, for the question from me, I think you did mention in your speech that the institutional framework and the rules-based approach is breaking down. And everybody is looking, obviously, in their own national interest, but beyond the national interest, the systems are breaking. So it's widely accepted that trade diplomacy should be paid with macroeconomic adjustment. So how would we protect our economic interests while executing economic cooperations with the European Union and particularly with the United States? I think this is one question everybody would like to to be solved in the sense that while we are doing quite a few things on the EU front, the economic stakeholders are waiting for some conclusion for the BTA with the US. So any thoughts on that, ma'am?
I think there's a lot of thought in the media about it, and every move that the Indian negotiators are taking towards getting the agreement signed is also reported in the media. We'll have to wait for that final destination to be reached. Efforts are being made. There's just no second thought on that. Commerce Ministry is very seriously engaged in negotiations with all these countries, I mean, at least the two you named, European Union and also with the US. The ministers now in New Zealand trying to tie it all up for an agreement there as well. So efforts to have trade agreements signed are in full force. We'll wait for the conclusions.
Thank you, ma'am. Yeah.
Very nice evening to ma'am and all the dignitaries. We were listening since last 2 months regarding those who are exporting to US. Some relief on tariff and rate of interest are still we are waiting. Is there any program?
Well, if there is one, they'll announce.
I'm sorry if I have to.
So from the reforms, what we have been speaking about, self-reliance, of course, Shirin also had front-loaded one of the questions. While there have been a lot of performance improvement in the banking sector. And as you mentioned, ma'am, every time the government, responsive government asks every stakeholder to respond, I think the response has been phenomenal. So is the case with banking system. When reforms in banking sector in terms of the recapitalization, recognition, and reforms have been undertaken, and professionalization of the public sector banks has happened, is there any something what you are looking, because the context is Banking and Economics Conclave, so what is that you are expecting from the banks to further? You did mention in your speech that banking and financial services play an important role in the self-reliance, and particularly from a point of view of financial inclusion. I think we have reasonably done on that front. Is there any ask from the banking system and the broader financial ecosystem from you?
Nothing out of the box. You have to be a lot more proactive, reach out, widen your customer base, and also make sure that what you do will have to be a blend of both the old-fashioned banking with the new technology-driven banking. You just can't now say, I'm doing it all digitally, and I will reach out to my customers online. All that is fine. But person-to-person contact, which was the trait of Indian banks. And even when technology wasn't available, you made big waves because of the way in which your banking operations were people-driven, customer-driven, your staff-driven. I think that emphasis on person-to-person contact, and there, of course, since I come from the South, I will say language is an important way in which you communicate with your customers. Even if they're proficient in Hindi or English, I think it gives a nice touch. We Indians are known to go abroad and say few words in French and few words in Spanish or few words in Japanese because we want to please the host. It is basic etiquette. And the only flack which I'm unable to defend on behalf of the public sector banks, I'm not talking about the private ones at all, is when, because of our HR policy, we post people with different mother tongues to different areas. I'm not blaming the policy, but not a word of the local language is spoken. that little element of touch which is required with your local customers. Without them, you're not there. You need to have that element come in. Technology can be anything. DPI can bring in great advantages, efficiencies, productivity, profit. But that human touch is what many of the earlier private banks had, which later got nationalized. I've heard in my family stories after stories of how they would go to the villages and meet up with the customers. You don't need to toil like that, which our predecessors did. But yet, you need to have that touch. And I would put that as a very big element for your growth. Please don't be tantalized by just the technology-related growth. There are people out there. Connect with them. You have actually, now that it's a budgetary announcement, and I would see each one of you all having to do it, credit rating of a customer, particularly MSME, will have to be your own. It's a budget announcement that you shall not have a credit rating outsourced company advising you on it. What's the logic behind it? You knew your customers earlier because the person posted there would tell you about the local, who's creditworthy, who's reliable, who's authentic, who's this, who's that. That's completely gone. Wouldn't you want to restore that? What kind of and also the ills of outsourced credit rating are up to our nose. People know it now. I cleared my debt, but still the agency has taken its own sweet time to correct my credit record, and therefore I'm being denied loan. At a time we want growth to be given the emphasis. You can't ignore any one individual who's contributing to the economy. So I, honestly, through this conclave of SBI, appeal to all banks, make sure your HR policies are such that you're not just recruiting for the sake of numbers, recruit for making sure that every staff posted at a branch would understand his customer, speak the language locally. At least if the top management doesn't speak, at least the branch level officials should speak. And I would strongly push towards performance appraisal based on his or her efficiency in the local language. That said, I think you have a very clear agenda. Credit will have to be made available. Even yesterday, I had 2 people approaching me saying, impossible to deal with your banks, as good as us shutting and going back to our local, money lender. Our paperwork has to be simplified. Of course, there's some work going on KYC. In the FSDC, we've spoken about it. All banks will have to sit and talk about it, and all regulators will have to come on one page. We'll do all that. But you will have to make your processes simple. You can't be putting the onus on the borrower to go on proving and providing documents till death comes. I'm sorry to be so blunt. If these small things are corrected, you will be one of the most appreciated institutions in the country.
Thank you, ma'am. This is a favorite theme and very close to FM's heart in terms of not losing the human touch. I think while high tech is important, high touch is equally important. I think that message is loud and clear. We will definitely, all the banks have been working on that, and in terms of what you mentioned, that the credit, the whole process simplification, ma'am, I would like to share with you as a concluding remark from me, is that we in SBI has undertaken Project Saral, simplify the processes what our employees are doing. While we have looked at customer journeys, we have had apps and reimagine the journeys, while the employees are empowered to provide simple solutions to the customers, we are working on Project Saral, and many things what you've been talking over the years, we are undertaking in this project. Thank you very much, ma'am, and on behalf of SBI and all the people who are present physically here as well as virtually across the channels, I would like to place on record my heartfelt gratitude for you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Madam Finance Minister. Now I would want I would request Chairman Sir to please present Finance Minister with the green certificate. Ladies and gentlemen, a huge round of applause for Madam Finance Minister. Ladies and gentlemen, I would now request everyone to please be seated. We are now beginning with our next panel, the first panel of the day. Request everyone to please be seated. We are beginning with the first panel of the day. In the front, ladies and gentlemen, can I please request you all to take your seats because we are about to begin with our first panel of the day.